The selling was done all ahead of time because our video did the work for us.
It's like cloning your best salesperson who knows the answers to all the questions, but you record videos that answer all of these questions.
All right, welcome back. We're going to be talking today in great lengths about just coming up with those ideas. So you've accomplished step 1 and 2 of launching a channel, launching content, knowing that you want videos. And now it's about coming up with those ideas, coming up with the next series of videos so that you have a plan and you're not, again, staring at a camera lens or a microphone, not knowing what to say, not knowing what to talk about. And I think the more that you have that plan laid out in front of you, the easier it is to just sort of execute on that step by step than feeling like you have to keep going back to the well and coming up with ideas. And as always, joined by my partner here, Irina.
Well, it's great to be on another podcast. And I would say we should start probably, why don't you, Indy, tell that story with a new client who came in with just the right mindset on what they wanted to do with their videos?
Yeah. So we have a client that reached out to us. We do a lot of outbound calls and things like that, but we had a client that found a video that we had done for another client that was in a totally separate space, and came in and said, "Hey, I like what these videos are. I like the way they look. I like the quality of them." And it just so happened that they were a series of videos that we literally did end to end. All we were given from that client was a title of the videos. We wrote the scripts, we shot them, we edited them, we posted them. And so this new client had found that video and was reaching out to me saying, "Hey, how do I get that? I want that done for me." And so we jumped on a call, and it was really, it was, from a business sales world, it's sort of that ideal moment where the selling was done all ahead of time because our video did the work for us. The video showcased everything that we're able to do, showcased, the quality and the deliverable of that. And so it did all the work for us, which is, that's the ideal case. That's the ideal goal for us anyway, and in the content that we create. Which is always an important note too, that like, certainly that was not the, you may not always be aware of that, of what video is going to attract which type of person, and always putting the best foot forward. But he came in knowing that, like, hey, I don't know a thing about creating video. I know the value of video, and I have this company that he's in the process of starting and launching that is unique in their business model and is unique in the service offerings that they give. And he knew I have a lot to explain to people. I have a lot to, there's a big education component to what I need to deliver for my potential customers. And he saw the value of video doing that, but kind of came as that open slate, like, let's get started. How do I, where do I sign kind of attitude? And so we worked out a plan of how to kind of roll this out. And it was, again, it was, these are sort of the unicorn clients, but it was almost as though he was buying before I was making the offer, and was playing a bit of catch up of like, oh, okay, all right, we're going on this now, because and it's, I think our industry, or our niche that we're in is a little unique in that too, because how do I describe this? The sales component that he was able to see is also the deliverable that we would be giving him. So it was sort of all in one package, that he's seeing this basically a VSL and going, yeah, I want that. And these people that made that are the ones that I want to do it. So there was no handoff or extra educational component on there. And I think that's the perfect video. That's the perfect, element that kind of, hey, this makes me ready to buy. Let's close on this,
Yeah. And I think what caught my attention with him was that he said that he wanted the videos do the selling, the answering of the questions for him, so he
Yeah.
wouldn't have to get on calls with
Yeah.
people, and all the questions would be answered, and they could just go and book the service or buy the product or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think that that's a, you know, in the theme of this episode, that's sort of like, that's the trajectory that we're on with that client, is we're, you know, kind of doing a general first episode kind of explainer video. Here's all the details that we can know. And because it's still sort of a new business model or a new offering, he wasn't totally prepared on like, what are the frequently asked questions? What are people going to be asking? And he's only had a handful of calls with clients at this point. So he's got some general, like, you know, and his experience in the industry is like, I think people are going to be asking about this and asking about this and asking about this. So we have kind of that starting point, but I think that's important element to bring up here, is that, you know, it's going to be very difficult. I don't want to say impossible, but it's going to be very difficult to go, here's my next year's worth of content. But to go, hey, here's the next 3 videos or 5 videos that I'm going to do. And based on that feedback, based on the questions people ask, based on the comments I get, that's going to inform the next series of content. And so it is sort of like, it feeds one another to go, hey, this is, you know, we make one, we get information, we use that to make the next ones.
Yeah, so I think for the businesses who just get going with their video content, if they keep 2 things in mind, they can get started really quickly with it. Number 1 is, keep in mind that big picture of building a system that works for you. It's like cloning your best salesperson who knows the answers to all the questions. But you record videos that answer all of these questions. And then number 2 is, what are those questions? What do you wish your customers knew before they came to you, before they got on a call with you? What do you wish they knew?
Yeah.
So answer those questions, make all the videos that answer all those questions. And then once you start going, like you said, every opportunity is a feedback opportunity. So when you receive more questions, when you receive feedback on the videos that you're making, those are going to be your next videos. So it's like a system that keeps constantly going, and you keep improving it by adding on more information.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's huge. What you just mentioned is that, yeah, we, you know, I was sharing kind of like, oh yeah, you want to get those frequently asked questions to create those videos. And that's very much directed by your clients and customers. But I think what you said, Irene, is so crucial, is like, there's you know, just as important of an opportunity, if not more important, to go, hey, I want to tell my customers what I want them to know. It may not even be the question that they're asking. And in some cases, they may not even know what question to ask. I just real quick, I have a 4-year-old daughter that, you know, early on, and, you know, new parents trying to figure this out. We're at the doctor, and I can't tell you how many times we were in the doctor's office with whatever, and the doctor would look at us and go, okay, what questions do you have? Like, that was the first thing that they would say. I'm like, I have no idea. You just start talking. I'll think of what questions. But I was like, this is all brand new to me. I've never raised a kid. We're both new parents. Like, this is all new. And I think we forget that a lot of times, because we live and breathe in this industry, and whatever your niche is, that we're like, I know everything about this. And I forget sometimes that, like, what level of common knowledge the average person has, especially when it's a B2C kind of business, where it's like, this is not something that they do every day, you know. And I think there's tons of stuff like that. It's like, you know, yeah, I don't, you know, whatever the thing is that I don't do all the time. I only do my taxes once a year. So, like, I'm not a CPA, so I don't know all the questions to ask. I'm looking to my CPA to go, hey, you got to make sure you do this, make sure you do this, because they know that's their industry. I just do it once a year, kind of thing. So
Right.
I think that's huge. It's like, what are the things you want your customers and clients to know?
Exactly. And what can help with that is to actually define, as your first step, define what is it that your target audience is, what they do, what kind of thought process they have about their business, what kind of problems they're facing, and what is it that they are doing. And once you start understanding that, you will be able to exactly know what is it, the information that they're missing. And this is going to be your constant educational content. There are so many educational opportunities in any niche, any business, any type of product you're selling. Your audience isn't going to know what you know because you're the one who provides the solution to their problem.
Right.
They just have a problem and they're looking for that solution, and you have it and they don't know about it. So your job is to provide that educational missing link that will get them to the point to where, oh, okay, there is a solution. There's somebody who does that. There's somebody who can help me out. And then we talk about how in the sales process, we have 3 stages in the funnel. We have the top of the funnel, the awareness stage, to where you address their problem. You acknowledge that this is the issues that they're dealing with, and this is the education that they're missing. Then we move them down to the middle of the funnel of the consideration stage, to where you need to show your process, how you do it, how you would solve the problem, and why you are the best expert in the field, or why your product is the best product for them to use to solve that problem. So in these types of videos, you will maybe explain the process in more detail, because they are considering that this is probably the stage where they're going to be looking at different providers who solve the same problem. So you need to stand out from the pool of other people who also do that and build trust with that. And then at the last stage, at the bottom of the funnel, you're going to close them. So that's the decision they're going to make. And answer last minute objections, talk about pricing if you have a clear pricing structure, provide testimonials of the clients that you worked with previously. And so you can systematically build out your video library that will lead them through that process and through that funnel without you having to explain all of that on a call with them.
And that's the power of video. I mean, like all those, we talk a lot about building trust and building that, comfortability and putting your customer or client at ease, because, that ultimately is like, as a consumer, I want to feel like I have done my due diligence, that I understand all the ins and outs, that I am well informed in what I'm purchasing. And I think that only scales up at as the price point goes up, or as the premium features and all of those kind of things, is like, if I'm going to go buy a candy bar at the store, I don't need to know all the ins and outs about it. But if I'm going to buy a candy store, I need to know a lot more about that. And so like that education piece becomes so much more crucial. And yes, there's a version where, okay, I'm going to get on a call and I'm, going to explain all this and answer all the questions one-on-one with customers. And then there's the version where you can record that. And I think what, anybody that's done any form of sales or customer education or anything like that can probably attest that, like, you have people from all walks of life and all sorts of different processes in or stages of their buying journey. But really, if you do it enough, you start forming that kind of general feeling of like, everybody wants to know this. Everybody needs this explained in more detail. Everybody gets a little confused about this. And you kind of start forming those generals that's what you can make videos on. And I think there's also this unique psychological thing that happens, is I think when as an audience member or as a consumer, and I am learning about something and I'm trying to get more information about that, when I'm watching a video and somebody is talking and it feels like they're talking to me because they're answering the questions I'm thinking about, that creates this like unique connection that feels different than if I was on a one-on-one call and I was like pulling that information out of them and I'm asking them and then they explain and I ask, but to go, oh, whoa, this person gets it. They know what problem I'm having and they have the solution. That I don't know. I don't know if you agree with that, Irina, but like that's such a unique thing that you get from video that you don't get from one-on-one sales calls.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that leads to another huge advantage that video content gives you is building that trust and credibility ahead of time. It's like you told me this morning about the call you had to where the client gets on a call and he goes, oh, thank goodness it's you on the call because he already saw all the videos with you being an expert and presenting the information and explaining and teaching. And he already trusts you as the expert in the field. And that is a huge thing to build that trust without having to be on the call for the first time with a person who sees you for the first time and they don't know anything about you, about your expertise, about what you do, and you're trying to explain it to them. You're doing a lot of work on that call. But when you have a library to where you are the face, you are the expert, you are the teacher and the presenter, and they watch that and they go, okay, that makes sense. That is all good. I trust this person because they delivered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this many topics and explanations on exactly what I'm looking for. And when they got on a call with you, they're like, oh, thank goodness it's you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think, it's, and that's a version. There's a lot of different ways to do content. And I think, I know like time is precious and time is valuable. And like it's a weird concept to go, it's sort of investing your time to go, hey, I'm going to invest in putting these videos out there so that a lot of that work is done. And it works the other way too. We're talking about the successful side of it, of going, okay, that path of the person first seeing the video and going, yeah, I like this. I'm learning more. This is who I want to work with. I'm getting on a call. I want to work with them. There's the other side of it, which I think is just as valuable, to weed out or eliminate the people that are not a good fit for you and your company. And you can do that with a video and you never have to, I don't want to say waste your time, but you don't have to utilize your time to find that out on a call. Is that they may see you and have the opposite reaction and go, oh, I don't know if I want to work with that, or I don't like their methods, or, or it's just not right for me. And it may not even be a negative thing, just like, oh, okay, I see what they're offering. That's not the direction I want to go. And they never take the next step, versus that could have been time that was eaten up by, getting on that call. So you invest the time into the video, put it out there, it lives forever. And then you can, people can then make the decision when they get there. Do I want to continue or do I want to move on to something else?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a great point to where you can set up a segment of the video of your video library to just serve that purpose of pre-qualifying your leads. And you set it up in the way that you establish exactly the parameters of the clients that you do work with and the ones you don't. And this is what separates them. And when the people watch those videos, they will automatically in their mind associate with one group or the other, and they will know whether or not they should be working with you or not, or whether it's worth their time and your time for them reaching out and getting on that call.
For sure. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about like, so this is sort of like the broad scope of like what videos can do and kind of the different types of videos. But I want to dig into a little bit more detail and a little bit more like, practical application of going where to start. Like I want to help you come up with that list of those first few videos. And, we're talking a lot about like that feedback loop and getting, kind of building the list, but let's start at the beginning. All right. So you've decided you're going to create content. And first and foremost, I always recommend that with any idea, with any sort of, content strategy, it starts with like, why am I doing this? What is the point? What do I want to achieve as a big picture view? Then digging down the next layer and going, what do I want each video to do? And as Irina's been sharing, is like there's each video can have a different purpose and kind of a different layer of that sales funnel. But also, what are, just kind of brainstorming, what's my first 5 videos? What's my first 10 videos to start from? Because there's nothing more discouraging than spending your time coming up with that one idea, that one episode, recording it, editing it, releasing it. It does what it does, and then sitting down, staring at a blank page again and going, okay, now I got to come up with a new one. But now I have this extra pressure of one video is already out there and I got to hurry up and get the next one out there. So let's talk a little bit about generating that first batch of ideas.
Yeah, I think we can approach it in like a starter kit way. We can give you a starter kit of videos that you can start making. If you've never made a video about your business, I think the very first logical one to make is the one that is kind of like the meet the expert style of explain who you are and explain what your business is. How did it start? Why did it start? Why is it important? What is that thing that makes you excited about what you do? Who you help? Focus more on the why side of the business than on the how. The how would be the next step. Maybe tell a little bit of the how, but focus first on the why. Why do you care? Why do you help? Who do you help? And why does it make a difference?
That's so huge. And that honestly should be the easiest video to make, because it's the story that you tell your family and friends when they go, oh, you're starting a business, or, oh, you're getting into, you're going off on your own. You're doing this. What's the next question they say? Why? Where'd this idea come from? And if that doesn't get you excited, then I'm not sure why you're in business. And so that should be the story that you've told 100 times. And now it's just a matter of putting it on tape. And we did exactly this. This is our, this isn't advice that we didn't follow. The first video we put out was our why video, was our here's who we are, here's what we're about, here's why we wanted to do this. And there's something that's very unique about doing this process that I think gets lost, is that, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of the story brand videos or the brand story videos and things like that. And the family standing out in front of the shop and going, hey, we're the Joneses and here's our company. We've all seen those. And I think what is missing in a lot of those is the personal story. And I think people, I don't want to dig into the whys of that, but I honestly think that there's a protection of that, or there's I don't want to be, this is business. I don't want to be personal, or I don't want to share too much, and certainly don't overshare. But I think what's unique about video is, and I should say internet video or online video, is that we sometimes look at the videos and we go, okay, 10,000 people watch this video. That's a big audience. And we think of it as we're talking to 10,000 people. But it's not. People are watching these videos by themselves. It's a one-on-one interaction. I'm either looking at my phone or I'm on my computer. Maybe I have another person in the room that I'm showing it to, but really by and large, 10,000 people are not sitting in the room watching it as we do a theatrical experience or something. So that kind of intimacy that you can get from video is something that you should lean into. And it's something I coach people on all the time, is that look at the camera as if you're talking to one person, because in reality, you are talking to one person repeated 10,000 times or whatever your audience size is. So when, just like if you were at a party sharing your story and being like, yeah, this happened in my life and I felt this way and this happened. And, I got to the point where I was at a fork in the road and I either kept working for somebody else or I start my own business. And I really felt like I had, you're making it personal. But then it's for whatever reason, and I don't know if it's just the the barrier of the lens or the protection. We get in there and we start telling the story and we go, yeah, we decided to start this company and we wanted to do this. And here's who we are. And look how big our building is. And we remove all the personal. And it's so unique because the more personal that you make it, the more it connects with the people it's going to connect with. It won't connect with everybody, but the people it does connect with, there's going to be that much stronger of a bond because they're hearing you and your personality and your what's important to you and your why, and that'll connect or it won't connect with them, but it's going to be a strong connection.
Yeah, I think the psychological barrier of why people don't want to do that is they're afraid of being too vulnerable, maybe. And again, in front of too many people. And like you said, if they just focus on talking to one single person and
Yeah.
kind of relax and tell their story, that makes it so much more
Right.
human. And
Yeah.
the audience that is going to watch, all of them, sure, they look at you and they see you, but they also will see themselves because
Yeah.
all of them are
Exactly.
humans with all the different types of stories that are in a way very similar, that
Yeah.
involve struggle, they involve solving problems, they involve emotional up and downs. And we as humans, we associate with that and we see ourselves in those stories. And the more you can be authentically you and show them your personal, vulnerable story, why side, the more they will see themselves in that and connect with what you're saying.
Yeah. And it's like what we were talking about in past episodes is like, it's the idea of aligning with your customer and being side by side with them and going, hey, we're all in this together and we're trying to solve a problem versus, hey, I know everything and I'm coming down from on top and just preaching to you. It's now going, hey, we're together in this and I have some things that I can offer you, and I'm sure you have some things to offer me. And so like, leaning into that personal element of it. And yeah, I mean, if you're not used to doing that, it can be tricky. And there's certainly, like we're talking about, talking to one person, that sort of thing makes it a little bit easier. And I think in the spirit of like kind of coming up with these ideas, another version of that, because it can be intimidating to sit in a room by yourself and stare down the barrel of a lens and know, in the back of your mind, oh, there's 1,000 people watching me or whatever. But just tweaking that ever so slightly and creating a podcast and creating, like what we're doing right now, where you just, even if it's two people sitting in a room and it could be you and your spouse, it could be you and your sibling, it could be, whoever, business partner, employee, whatever. And just going, hey, let's set up this camera and we're going to talk together. And I'm not going to look at the camera and I'm just going to look at you and we're going to have this conversation and let the camera kind of capture it. So it's the same content, it's the same information, but now it takes the pressure off of I'm talking to the camera and you are literally talking to one other person. And that format, and I'm sure you see it as you're scrolling online, is really popular. Just seeing the microphone in the shot and the person talking off camera, well, we see that kind of content all the time. And so that, there's also the psychology that I was reading about, like that feeling of, oh, I'm just sitting in the room listening to this conversation and I don't feel like this person's staring me in the eyes and they're talking to me. I'm just kind of like passively watching that as an audience member. So I think that's important too, to just like, that's another version of that. And again, very easy to accomplish on a practical sense.
Yeah, that is such a great adjustment. And it, like you said, it puts your audience kind of like, I'm a member of this group now and I participate in this community and the discussion is going and I feel like I'm part of that discussion too.
Yeah.
And I have my own opinions. Maybe they don't hear me as I express my opinions about what they're talking about, but I feel a part of this group and a part of this conversation. That's a great, great adjustment here.
Yeah. So some other ideas that I always kind of start with, and there's sort of these general kind of topics or elements that you can dig into as again, just to get the ball rolling, just to get it kind of started. And Irina kind of touched on this, but there is the how video, so we've shared who we are, we've shared why we're doing what we're doing. And again, that could be 2 separate videos in itself. You could do a why video, you could do a what video. But now, I think, so I know you, now I've gotten to know you and I know what you're about. I know why you're doing what you're doing, but I want to know, what is it that you do? How do you do what you do? And this is the opportunity. And this, again, this could be a series of videos. This doesn't have to be a one-off video. And Irene and I are talking about this all the time of like, what is it that makes us unique? What is it that sets us apart from people that are doing the same thing we're doing? And so that is a video topic. And again, that should be low-hanging fruit. That should be easy stuff for you to do because you know your business and you know what you're doing. I don't think a lot of people, and again, I'm talking to business owners right now, but this applies for business managers and content creators in general. But I don't think a lot of people get into, business and going, hey, I'm going to start a plumbing company and I'm going to do it exactly like every other person is doing a plumbing company. I think most people get into it to go, you know what? I'm going to start this plumbing company because I see the problem is we're not responding on the same day, or the problem is we're talking down to our customers, or the problem is whatever that is. And that's your why. So now let's do a video about how you do that. How do you put the customers first? How do you respond the same day? What's your peel back the curtain? Let us know how you're doing business, specifically in the elements that make you different than everybody else. I don't need a video that shows me step 1 through 10 that I've heard 100 times before and everybody talks about. What I need to know is that step between 6 and 7 that you do different than everybody else. That's a video, right? That process of like, and again, this, I think the trepidation or the fear behind this is, well, I don't want to give away my secrets. I don't want to show them how the secret sauce is put in there. And I see Irina shaking her head like that the minute you hold on to that, you're creating that barrier with that customer rather than going, you set yourself up to go, hey, I want to freely give this away. I'm confident in what I'm offering. Here it is. Here's the secret. I'm interested to hear your perspective.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my theory is that there are no secrets. Whoever who wants to know and needs to know your secret, they already know it.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be afraid to share information. Information is everywhere. And I think it's a whole wealth of videos you can create in this specific group. That's all your process walkthroughs. And even if it's the steps that everybody do, I think there is room to show the entire walkthrough through your process of what happens when a client starts working with you, because it puts them at ease of now they're not in the unknown of, oh, this is unpredictable, I'm going to get on a call, then what's going to happen? They already know this is the process, this is exactly how it's going to go step by step, and it eases the anxiety. It's like, it makes me think of how people are afraid to go to the dentist, right? Everybody is so nervous and anxious. It's like, oh, what's going to happen to me when I go to the dentist? But then for that same dentist, the easiest video to make is, here's what happens when you come into our office, and step by step, and here's where you walk into, and here's what our receptionist looks like, and she's gonna wave and say hi to you, and like, this is the room that you're gonna go into. Like, all those even very simple steps and simple videos, they put your client at ease and make them feel comfortable even before they again talk to you ever for the first time.
So two really great things that you said. One is, that sort of walkthrough process, because I'm like, again, putting yourself in the mind of your customer. And I think the element of that is that here's what to expect. Like, what is the barrier? What is the element that may hold your customer back from purchasing from you? Let's do a video about that. Let's eliminate that. Hey, if you're downtown, like, where do I park? How do I get to your office? What is the, do I have to pay for street parking, or is there a parking lot nearby? Take a camera out there and show them. Be like, hey, we have this sign. You'll see this as we're coming in on the highway. We're right here. This is where you pull in, you park. There's always spots. And here's the front door. Like literally showing to alleviate that anxiety or that tension from your customer. Again, removing the barriers and making it easy. I think that's a great idea of content of like, here's the, we're talking about physical things, but it could be like, on the digital space of going, hey, here's the form that you're going to get that I'm going to have you fill out. Here's what our invoice looks like. Here's what this is going to be. Here's, you're going to get an email on this day that's going to ask you to fill out this, whatever your process is that you can walk through and show people this isn't intimidating. This isn't, and here's why we're asking for it. This isn't just a bunch of, gobbledygook. This is why we need this information, because we're going to do this with it, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think another category is myth, because you can find on pretty much every single topic, you can find a lot of preconceived notions, some things that people assume, but they do not know exactly, and maybe something that will hold them back from working with you because they assume something which is not true. So you come in and you bust those myths and you deliver the actual factual information on why those assumptions are inaccurate.
Yeah. So, and again, these are all coming from you knowing your business and knowing what is there. And it's a little bit of a mental exercise to go, again, because you live and breathe this, that it is, how you got to put yourself in the shoes of your prospective client, customer, and go, what again, what do I want them to know? And what do I need them to know? And what are they going to want to know? Like those, if you just start answering those questions, you're going to have endless amounts of video. The other one that comes to mind is, we talked about like overcoming those barriers and those objections, but like even just in that, here's the path that you're going to go on. Like in a perfect structure, like we are going to focus on, like just using ourselves as an example, we're always focused on goal-oriented content that we're going to achieve this goal. So that process for us is we kind of reverse engineer our videos, that we go, what is the end result? What do we want them to do at the end? And then that informs the decisions as we go backwards. So like that can be a video in itself, which we have not created yet, which maybe would be important, is to go, hey, if you work with us, we're going to lead you through this process, and we're going to, day 1 is going to look like this, but day 90 is going to look like this. And here's what's happening on that path, and filling in those gaps. Because as you know, like, especially when you're working with clients on a long-term basis, there's always that like, okay, we did all this onboarding stuff. We got all those kind of like, I got all the paperwork filled out. I did all this first stuff. We know what we're going to do. Invoices are paid. Everything's ready to go. And then there's this week or 2 week gap where what's happening during that period. And yes, there's a value to those touch points with the client, following up, being like, hey, we're doing this, we're working on this, this is happening. But there's a video for that, to go, here's what's happening when you don't hear from us. We're doing this, we're working on this, we're building this, whatever your industry is, to go, this is what's happening in those missing spots. And again, this is another opportunity of informing your clients and showing them what to expect, that takes some of the weight off of that one-on-one conversation. And that anytime you can remove that element where I'm like, I don't need to explain this, I can just point you to the video and go, hey, watch this. This is what's happening.
Yeah, I think that's a great category that you can tap into, that I would call a behind the scenes category.
Yeah.
Of what's happening behind the scenes in your business when you're not directly interacting with your client. What is it that they're not seeing that you're actually doing? Where are those nuts and bolts and little cogwheels that are turning in your business to make those solutions or products for your client? That also builds the credibility on your end and shows the transparency of the process that you're implementing. And then I think the another huge category that is so important is the customer stories.
Yeah.
And showing the people that you worked with and how you solved the problem, and let them tell the story. Let them share what is that the problem that they had, why they came to you, and how they worked with you, how the process went, and what type of results they got, and why are they still working with you.
Mm-hmm.
That is the prime, incredibly valuable content, because you are not the one selling. That's a third party person. They're not interested in any revenue for your business. They're interested in revenue in their business, but they are praising you, which gives you that extra layer of credibility.
Yeah, which always sounds way better. I mean, you can brag about yourself all day long, but to have somebody else brag about you, especially somebody that's in the actual same shoes as your new client. And I think that brings up that kind of opens up a whole nother, window of other elements. We've been talking a lot about like you generating all of this content and like getting in front of the camera and talking and all that. But there's a whole kind of subset of like, what are the elements that you have at your disposal which can help you add to or create content so that the pressure isn't solely on you? And past customer testimonials is one of those. That could be a whole video. And this just happened for us where I needed to get some testimonials, and I reached out to a client that we've done a lot of work with and has been really, really a good partnership. And I just said, I was like, hey, we're looking for some testimonials, and, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Can you, just share your experience working with us? And I said, if you just write up 1 or 2 sentences, and then, but also because this is somebody that has done videos with us, and I was like, oh, and if you can, you don't have to, but if you could just turn on a camera and speak that and say that in person, that would be really great. It's no obligation. I'm not trying to put extra work on you, but if you could do that. And he was more than happy to do it. Like, he jumped at the opportunity, and within, I think, a couple of days, he had sent us a video that was very nice and a very powerful testimonial. And so it's a little bit out of my comfort zone too, to be like, hey, can you talk about this about me? Like, I'd rather, it sometimes can be uncomfortable, but like, I think my big takeaway from that was like, oh, this really was not hard to do. This was pretty easy to get somebody, because that's why he's working with us, is he likes what we're doing. He likes, this isn't an adversarial relationship. We're helping each other out. So like, he was more than happy to do that. The other element that I think of is kind of along those lines is any of, if you can showcase what you've done with other clients, or showcase, whether that be a screen share or that be a, whatever those deliverables are, photos of your completed job or things like that are like, yeah, you're sort of generating it, but it's not relying on you to write a script and to, speak directly into the camera. But those also, speak louder than like, oh, let me tell you about in general what we do and this and this and this. But again, it's the specificness. I can't say that. It's the specificness of that, what you do, to go, here is the before and after. Here is, the screen share of, blur out the logo, but here's the screen share of this website we built for this client. Here's a, whatever that deliverable is, that you can showcase that. And that is immensely valuable. And, even if you don't have that client speaking to it, but to showcase it, that's another video.
And I think another level that you can take this, of course, if you have the time and the resources for that, is to allow that client to get kind of like a feature spot, I guess, in your video, to be able to tell about them and their business and what they do. And then from there, they can explain the problem they had and how the process was working with you and how it changed their business. But you start from the standpoint, oh, you feature them as a business, because when you allow them to explain who they are, why they do what they do, and what is it that their challenge was, they are connecting directly to your customer base, because that's what your target audience is. They're going to connect and they're going to say, that's me. I do the same thing. I have the same problem. This is how I do it. And let me see how this actual business or actual person solved exactly the problem that I'm dealing with right now. So they are going to be that, they are going to serve as that mirror that will project the personality of your target audience back onto them and be like, oh, that's it. That's me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, there's always the opportunity within that where it's like, if it's something you're already doing anyway, whether that be, hey, I'm getting on Zoom calls with people, or I'm doing demonstrations, or again, in the service industry, I'm doing the work on this car or this house, or I'm replacing this roof. If it's stuff that you're already doing anyway, put a camera on it and record it. And, that's a whole nother type of content that we haven't really dug into, of like sort of that vlog style or docuseries kind of style content, where it's like, again, it's not an extra lift. It's not you going and, calling up a house and saying, hey, can I replace your roof? Cause I want to make a movie out of it. Is going, oh, this is a client that's already hired you. You're, replacing their roof, and obviously get permission and all of that, and don't show addresses and do all the security stuff. But hey, I want to see, just again, doing a time lapse video or something that's, set up a camera in a tree that's just showing your crew and you out there doing the work. And that could be used as B-roll, or it could be, you could do a voiceover and say, here's what we did here. This is the challenge we ran into. This is what we did. And again, it should be easy content to create because you're already doing it. The only extra step is setting up a camera or documenting it or recording it. And again, the same rules apply. Whether you use it or not, now you have it. And now that could be a whole nother video. And as I'm saying this, because, the catalyst of this podcast has been for us to kind of generate this content as well. I think that's something that we should start doing more of, is featuring the videos that we have done for other clients on our own platforms, to, and whether we do some kind of like talking points to that and go, here's what we did with this video and here's why we did it. But it's a way of showcasing the client and their content. And we've done that in small snippets where we would like repost a video that we've done for another client on our social media or something like that. And it's always been met with positive response that from the client that would go, oh, wow, thank you for sharing the video. Thank you for sharing, that, or they get a couple extra views out of it. But also it creates and generates more content for you as well.
Yeah. And you can even create like, I don't know, an article, a blog post on your website, actually explaining what is it that you did with the client, what worked and what didn't, and how the process went, and what are the takeaways from the job, so that your future clients actually, they don't just watch a video, but they also have this entire story and analysis. And some people are very technical and number oriented and analytical, and they want that type of content and information. So if you're that type of business who target people who are very analytical, that might be something worth doing. Yeah.
And I think of another kind of niche to that is like, any sort of information coaching, sharing, educational type businesses, which we do quite a bit of work with, is like that again, that's already built in, that it's like, hey, you're doing this speaking engagement, you're at a conference, or you're doing these kind of webinars or things like that, record it. And, again, follow all the safety protocol and get all the right releases and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's sort of self-generating content. I think you don't want to do too much of that, or you don't want that to be your sole type of content. But I think it's a great kind of entry point and starting point to kind of put some of that out there, to start that kind of priming the pump, to start that feedback loop, to go, oh gosh, everybody's asking about this. Everybody wants to know how I do that or why this happens. And maybe I need to do some videos on that. And I think you touched on something that's really key is like, yeah, we're talking a lot about video content, but this also applies across the board on this could be, photos, this could be blogs, this could be articles, this can be those other elements, those other types of content. It could be a newsletter that you mail out. It could be, so you can, and it could be all of that, short form, long form. You can really check a lot of boxes just by restructuring how you're utilizing that content. And again, maybe that's a topic for another episode of like how to take a piece of content and repurpose it across all the platforms. But I'm always thinking of those sorts of things rather than having a one-off, here's one video and it goes, but we go, okay, well, we at the very least can repost that on other social media, cut it down and post it on, Instagram and TikTok and things like that. But it's the bigger bang for your buck. It's the way of getting more out of, what you put into it, you're getting more out of it.
Yeah. And I think too, as you set up your systems in your business of like, when you onboard a client, the first step that happens, the second step that happens, you can think of making those little kind of like, they're not internal videos, but they are like internal system videos within the system to where the client is in the system. For example, they signed up and you automatically send them an email with a small video saying, hey, thank you for signing up, and this is what's going to happen next. And you tell them exactly what's going to happen there, and they go like, oh, okay, good. That's good to know. And then the next step, they hit the next milestone in the process. You send them another video of like, and the next process after this is this, and here's what the next step is like, and here's what we need from you, and such. So kind of like automating your system of leading them through the process with these kind of pre-recorded videos. And like you said, yes, it's good to touch base in person, but you can also automate that with pre-recorded, like if you have predetermined processes that you implement, you can just say, step 1, hey, thank you for this. This is what's next. Hey, this is what's next.
Yeah. And it reconfirms the confidence that they're putting in you. Obviously there's a confidence. They had enough confidence to click purchase and to, buy, but it's also then, there's always that kind of, the dating phase of that with that client of going, okay, we're kind of learning about each other. We're getting to know, how are we going to communicate? How's this relationship going to go before we go too far with this? And I think that all of those, like what Irina was just talking about, is like all of those are reinforcing that confidence, which every one of those videos that you kind of send to them, it is going, hey, I got you. This is you're in good hands. We're going to take care of you. And just as a general practice, I'm constantly trying to frame the next steps and going, hey, here's what to expect. Here's what this is going to be about. This is what we're trying to achieve here. And yes, you can put those into videos so that they get that video and again, it's answering questions before they ask it. And then they walk away from that going, oh, okay, all right, I can relax. I know I'm being taken care of. I'm not going to be ghosted. I'm not going to be, left out. I see what they're doing. And again, we get into that kind of subconscious level of going, oh, okay, they know what they're doing. They've been here before. This is not new. This is not a surprise to them. Again, to go back to the doctor analogy is I'm like, there's nothing worse than going to the doctor and describing a problem that you're having or a pain and having them scratch their head and go, all right, that's interesting. I'm going to have to look that one, like you want your doctor to be like, oh, I know exactly what you got. Here's what you're going to do. Here's how we're going to treat this. It is. So I think the same thing goes in business to go, nobody wants to be the one-off or be the surprise or be the like, oh, I stumped them. I didn't, I'm the, I'm the unique version of this, but to go, nope, we've heard it all. We've been there before. We know exactly what you're going through. And don't worry, we've solved this problem, before. We're going to take care of you.
Yeah. And I think, again, coming to the big picture of it is just always keep in mind that you are creating the system that is going to run a part of your business for you, basically. You're automating a big chunk of your system with those videos. And this is how to approach this entire process that from the start could be intimidating of, oh, I need to create all these videos. No, you just focus on how do you automate it? How do you make a system that runs your business or part of your business for you?
Yeah, and it is an investment. I don't want to downplay the idea that like this is going to require a lift on your end. But if you think about it, and this is again the value of online video and any type of content in general is that it's out there as long as you want it to be, and it's out there doing the work for you. So it's not a, hey, I'm going to make this video and it's going to go out there and it's going to disappear. It is a long-term investment that I go, okay, I spent the time, I did the video right, or whatever the content is, picture, article, whatever that is. And now it's going to go out there and continue to do the work for me. And so, yeah, it's an investment. It's a lift on the front end, but it's going to continue to do things in the long run. And I think that's always an important perspective to kind of keep in mind, that it's like, yeah, there is some level of commitment or investment on your side, but it will, double and triple as time goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. You put all the heavy lifting, heavy work up front, and then it runs for you. But then again, you do need to keep it going. And the easiest way to keep it going consistently is to just capitalize on your why and your passion of why you're doing it. And then you're already excited about what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're excited to share that information. Just keep sharing it.
Yeah. I was just sharing with on a client call the other day about the perspective of that sort of Venn diagram. If you think of like that perfect cross section of the types of videos to do, and I was like, certainly there is the I don't know which ones comes first, but it's like, yeah, you want to create the videos that sell your product or offering to the customer and do all that. Here's what I want the business to know. Or I want my customers to know about my business. Like that's certainly got to be a big slice of that diagram. But at the same time, you sort of have that overlap of, I need to make sure, because we're dealing with social media, we're dealing with companies that have another business model, and we need to keep our foot in, hey, how do I feed that algorithm? How do I make sure that, YouTube is happy? Because if YouTube's happy, they're going to promote my content. So there's that perfect cross section between the two where you're appeasing both of those. But the third part that I think that people forget about, which is exactly what you were just talking about, Irina, is like, the thing that you are excited about and the what makes you like, hey, I love talking about this. That's that third part. And if you can find that cross section of all three of those elements, that's the perfect video. That is where everybody wins, because if you're not creating content, whatever it is, written, video, podcast, whatever it is, if you don't have some sort of excitement or some sort of like engagement in it, it's going to stop. You're going to get burnout. You're going to get, and again, burnout could be a whole nother topic, but I always think of it in waves too. It's not like, hey, what I'm starting today, I will always be excited about for the next 30 years of my business. It is, hey, this is what I'm passionate about right now. And I'm continuing to be passionate about this for the foreseeable future, but things may shift. But it's like, you gotta want to do it, or it's gonna be a bigger lift. It's gonna be a bigger challenge. And, so that, that may be the litmus test of going, am I excited about this? Do I want to? And again, that passion, that excitement comes across then. If you're talking about something you're excited about versus stuff you're bored with, your audience is going to be bored. If you're excited, your audience is going to be excited.
Yeah, and I think having that passion and excitement is a good kind of compass of where to follow. As long as you follow that passion and excitement, you will always have that stream of content that will be authentically you, that will be going on to your audience.
Yeah, and we've really covered a lot of kind of, again, those kind of starting point video ideas that sort of apply generally, and you can kind of specify that more into your industry or your niche. One thing we haven't talked about, is if any of these ideas that we've shared with you, and you're like, oh, none of those work for me, that doesn't fit, which would be surprising to me. But we also have tools at our disposal, like utilizing, ChatGPT or some of these like generative kind of, again, just for the brainstorm, just to get the ball rolling. If you're really struggling with like, I have no idea what to do, and just plugging that into ChatGPT and go, give me 10 ideas. I don't think that you should end there. I think take those 10 ideas and go, okay, here's a couple that I kind of like. Now, how do I kind of manipulate that and kind of grow that and run that through my systems and kind of help that kind of, again, as a kind of, I think that's something that ChatGPT does well, is like starts the brainstorming process, starts that kind of like, gets you over that initial hurdle of the blank page. But like, that's a tool as well. I mean, if nothing else, throw something in there to kind of get some ideas going.
Yeah, I think it's a whole different conversation of like how to work with ChatGPT for your content and for your strategy, because you don't want to just be taking the first responses and applying it. Those are not
Yeah.
going to be good
Yeah.
at all. You're going to be doing a lot of analyzing, a lot of tweaking, a lot of giving feedback to the chatbot back and forth to get it to the point where it actually understands and does exactly what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I guess is that could be a good plug for us to say that we actually trained a chatbot, and we named him Cosmo, and we trained the chatbot on the processes that we apply with our clients and the knowledge base that we constantly go to and the best practices. And Cosmo knows how to respond to you in the way that would be most beneficial and most adjusted to the goals of the video content that works to bring results for your business.
Yeah. It's a really powerful tool, and that wasn't the intention that when I brought that up of like kind of steering people to that, but I think it's incredibly valuable that it's catered more towards content creation and catered more towards like really understanding what it takes to get to the results that you're trying to get to. We'll have a link in the description, and we're also going to put a link for a document that we have put together that kind of talks through. Irina was kind of giving you a bird's eye view of like the sales funnel and the purpose of videos at each stage of the video. And we created this document that really kind of walks you through how to create content that are videos that actually convert, that actually achieve your end result, and not just making videos for video's sake, but actually giving the purpose behind each video. And we'll put a link to that as well in the description, so you can be able to download that and use it as you need to. Yeah. And with that, this has been another great conversation. And selfishly, I'm like, I got a whole bunch more ideas for us to kind of implement and carry forward that I think came out of this conversation. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in, and we, listen to us in the next episode.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time.